Hey, long time no see. Sorry, I'm busy. Had the Easter holidays, family over. I had a bad case of food poisoning. I went to the hospital for a day. I'm fine. That was a couple weeks back. Just been busy. Had a lot of stuff going on. So I'm sorry. It's been a long wait, but I know some of you guys are hyped for this series. Unfortunately, this is probably going to be one of the most boring and straightforward episodes. This is the episode on demographics of why Democrats are wrong about everything, and this is less that they're wrong about something, but more that you as a particular person, especially if you're white or conservative at least, you should keep these things in mind because largely the way politics revolves, especially in voting, has almost nothing to do with policies. It has to do with demographics. Demographics are indeed destiny. No Democrat can get elected fucking anywhere except for few exceptions, your Portlands, your Seattles, your Washington, uh, Oregon. And is that a fucking jet? For God's sakes, it's like the elements conspire to never let me fucking upload outside. What is this horse shit? Anyway, we'll move indoors. Okay, so where was I? And without those specific regions, right? What you're gonna see in voting is strictly fucking goddamn minorities voting Democrat. White men nationwide vote conservative around 70% of the time. Let's move my lighting too. God, what an unprofessional clusterfuck. I just really wanted to record outside. It's like the last night stay here in South Florida. Okay, so white people, about 70 to 75% conservative. Now, college education does drop that number. Then you get to white women, little bit less conservative. Repeal the, I can't even remember. Is it the 13th? Repeal the 19th? Yeah, probably 19th. Women's suffrage, just get rid of that shit. But especially in 2016, which is largely the numbers that we're basing this series off when we go to numbers that relate to voting. I'm mostly showing that year, which, if I remember correctly, not tremendous changes except for more turnout for voting happened in 2020, but it was largely the same turnout. Anyway, college education for both reduces that number to more Democrat, less conservative, but still overwhelming majority in both cases, white people in general vote conservative. If we were a white Western country, we would be a very conservative country. And once upon a time, not too long ago, we were all of the above, a white Western conservative country. So why do people like the Young Turks like to say that college education develops you into a Democrat? Well, first of all, in the case of white people, that effect is noticeable, but it's not tremendous. It's not monumental at all. It's 4 to 5 points. I would argue that it's not learning about shit, because in college you could be learning about anything, and a lot of those things have nothing to do with politics. However, in college there are certain courses that are all about politics. In the liberal arts center, not so much STEM, where we're supposed to be learning about climate change and science and shit. Oh, we're the party of science. We like to kill babies even after they're born. Science. That's foreshadowing, by the way, but let's not get off track. I would argue it's the heavy social pressure. There's not really a conservative college out there, except for a few religious ones, maybe like the Mormon ones like BYU or something, or whatever, the Christian universities like TCU, Texas Christian or something, maybe. I don't know. But no, they tend to be very liberal socially, and professors love to drill people with social issues. I've even seen like internet friends from Eastern Europe who were very conservative, and then they went to college and started trying to sell me on socialism. I'm like, what you're saying is retarded. I know what you're saying is wrong. Where the fuck are you getting this from? It's college. It's indoctrination. But let's move on to the really important part of the demographics discussion. In fact, I lingered far too long on white people. Sorry. We got to talk about Mexicans, Muslims, blacks, Asians, and really blacks. Blacks is a big deal. You want to know how big of a deal is? Blacks are about 13% of the population, and they vote 90 fucking percent plus Democrat across the board, across wherever the fuck they live. which is why, remember, I talked last time when I showed you the election voting map. And if I didn't suck at video editing, I'd probably just put it up here. But just imagine here you got the Bible Belt. It's about this region. If you imagine this rectangle here, and you just see this blue stripe, and then like a little bit above it, you see this blue dot. You know, like up on the coast, there's like Baltimore, blue dot. The Bible Belt is all like, you know, St. Louis and fucking Atlanta and Mobile and shit, or Mobile, or however you fucking say that. And then you get your, you know, your classic cosmopolitan metropolitan areas, you know, your Southern California, New York, you know, all the big major cities. But everywhere that there are black people, college education, doesn't matter. Black men are like 90% Democrat, and black women are like 93% Democrat. It's a sure thing. So if you think that Democrats ever really want to solve racial justice, well, first of all, racial justice has been set up as an unwinnable issue that has no solution. That's on purpose so that you're mad about it all the time, and the Democrats can count on it to wind you up like a fucking toy and send you out smashing things and looting. The other thing is Gibbs, welfare, big fucking deal. Now, I'm somewhat sympathetic to welfare as a concept because I've been on it before as a kid. I was raised by a single parent who was an engineer who made good money, but, you know, when Bill Clinton fucked the tech economy, we were out of work for a while, and we went from, you know, even single parent, upper middle, at least middle-ish class, depending on how you look at it, to poor. And that wasn't fun. You know, I've been to food banks. You know, I've had to take charity. It's not great. I would say that not everybody who's on it needs to be on it. I would say that stuff like Section 8 housing and stuff is just keeping these people from ever climbing out of their shit. And then, of course, these people have developed a culture of anti-intellectualism, of psychotic, semi-religious, you know, cultism, with fucking social justice being complete horse shit. It's a fucking religion. It has nothing to do with reality. That's a topic for another video. And these people are depended on for those states, like Illinois, Alabama, Missouri, all the way up even through parts of the Carolinas, you know, everywhere these people are, especially New York and stuff, you're only really seeing blue voting white people. New Hampshire, Delaware, Colorado, even though Colorado's got plenty of Mexicans in it, but I mean, it's still pretty largely white and it's very solid blue. Even though there are a lot of conservatives there, they live on like farms and shit, while the couple of big cities in Colorado, like Denver and Boulder, are very, very metropolitan and super liberal. It's like one of those weird states, but people say California is like that. Like northeastern California is just red as fuck. But they have no way to sway the state. You're seeing a lot of that. And there's been talk off and on for decades for states wanting to balkanize because, you know, a significant portion of that state that is responsible even for a significant portion of that state's GDP, their productivity, can never get their way. Which is part of why Democrats love major metropolitan areas. They love cosmopolitan areas because the fewer white people there are, the more they will vote Democrat. That's literally the way it is. If you think Democrats are ever going to solve immigration, it's a wonder that any of them even say a word about the issue, because they depend on it, they support it, they encourage illegal immigration because those are their constituents. That's their voters that they are letting in by the over 1 million every year, and importing straight in from Somalia and Syria and fucking other parts of North Africa and shit. It's fucked. And it's these people, you know, the idea of immigration is these people are supposed to contribute to your society. These people are wage slaves at best and normally just welfare sinkholes. So why do we keep letting them in and lie about their effect on the country? They lie about their effect on crime, lie about how they depress wages for everybody else who already lives there, lie about how they fucking ruin places. And, you know, at some point we're probably going to talk about gentrification and white flight, but I don't think that's the next episode. But you're seeing largely the same thing with Mexicans. Mexicans vote more red than they used to, and in some states Mexicans vote very red, actually. But if you look at certain places that the Democrats really depend on for Mexico, you're looking at states like Arizona and California. They really depend on handing Gibbs to these people, and especially in Arizona, these people are a tremendous source of crime, cartel crime coming over the border, tremendous source of drugs. entering the state, and you'll see entire almost cities worth of people in Arizona and in New Mexico that don't speak English at all. They don't have to. They just are basically an entire demographic just moving in and nobody else lives with them. That's not very diverse. But anyway, without these people, Democrats win nothing, okay? Part of the reason why I've started at, risk to my person and risk to this channel and stuff, really becoming, unironically, very nationalistic and very interested in my race. I'm not going to say specifically those two words together, because even an unmonetized, non-partnered channel like this can get fucked over for saying the words white nationalists anyway. Because everything I want, everything that's good for me, and really not just good for this goose, but good for the entire gander, is what white people create, white people produce, what white culture is, and how white people vote is what's best for everybody. So even if I, want to go, like, I don't know if any of you guys ever seen Murdoch, but the R. the Donald character, like, whoa, look at the base black guy with the Trump hat. I'm not that guy anymore. No, I'm for me now. I'm for me and people like me. And if you're like me, I'm for you. And it's not that I wish any ill will on the black guy in the Trump hat, but I'm not interested in him. And signaling to that guy serves no purpose but to chase away the most hardened conservative base. I'm sorry to say, here's another demographic thing that I'll spit out that maybe makes my argument look bad to certain people. There's one thing I didn't really believe until I really honestly looked at politics. I really honestly looked at people and really honestly started listening to all sides. When they say, again, like the R. the Donald character, Democrats are the real racist, and the actual response is, no, goddammit, we are. He's not wrong. Democrats are exceedingly racist in an exploitative sense. We're racist in a you're bad for society sense, okay, right? Just to say the quiet part out loud. But it's not that I wish any ill will on these people, but really the source of our problems right now is in so heavily catering to these people, giving them money they don't necessarily need, giving them pats on the back they don't need, giving them taxpayer money and programs outside of welfare that they definitely don't need. BLM is an absolute complete financial scam that is only just now finally starting to get audited after 10 fucking years of being a scam. That's right. If you think BLM started with just those riots and shit in 2020, or just a couple years before that, no, BLM started with the Trayvon Martin shooting in 2012. It's been a decade of burn, loot, murder. Yeah, no, that's how long we've been dealing with this shit, and we're reaching critical mass with the situation. But to give you a scenes from the next episode of this shitty series, we're probably going to be, because of current events and all that shit, and also because it's something I actually know a bit more about, and there's a little bit more to say other than a handful of numbers, and this is how they're used. Like I did with this video, we're going to be talking probably about abortion, because abortion is one of those things that I can start jumping off point from strictly demographics into specific wedge issues, the fake and gay game that we use to distract everybody every 2 years so nobody asks how Congress is spending the budget. The budget is what matters, but we're going to talk about one of the hot button wedge issues, which is abortion. That's coming next. I'm going to try to make that in the next few days. I hate giving myself deadlines because something will always come up and make me regret it. I had previously said I was going to try to do an episode of the series every few days. Of course, it's been a couple of weeks. I'm sorry about that, but we're going to probably talk about abortion next, and then from there, there's a number of things we could jump off to, wedge issue-wise. We can talk about climate change and how that's a scam. We can talk about a lot of things. I don't know yet if we're allowed to talk about COVID. The last time I actually sat down like this, and because for this episode, I actually sat down and read Pew Research, which was a pain in the ass. I avoided any articles that skewed or interpolated shit. I just looked at raw numbers and just got you some racial demographics and where those people are and how they're used and abused, and it's usually by promising them Gibbs, is the large thing about how the Democrats depend on minorities and they get them with Gibbs, with free stuff, your taxpayer money. But next we're going to talk about baby murder. That's going to be exciting. Um, and if for those of you who have seen the couple of videos in the past I've done on abortion, I'm sorry if that's a rerun for you, but it's it's current events, so I'll try to keep it fresh. I may actually talk a little bit more specifically about Roe v. Wade. We'll do a little bit of research on the actual landmark case that was a fraud. Roe v. Wade is a fraud. It is a fake case. Well, no, it's a real case. What I should say is the claims made in Roe v. Wade were blatant and admitted lies. They were perjuries before the court in order to legalize baby murder. So we'll get into that next. But 15 minutes is way long enough for this. Just kind of recapping, kind of excited to be back and yammering a little bit. I'll try to be timely as best I can, guys. Thanks.